The advisor advises, he who executes carries the cost. So it occurred some time ago to me that the following might often be true. That, well, the advisor does not really have skin in the game in terms of the execution. Now, of course, it could be that he actually has skin in the game, but obviously, if someone gives advice to me, for example, and says, okay, I should do more biceps curls. Let's just take the gym as an example because it has many different things. It can be measured. It can be measured in digit numbers, not in digit numbers, but just normal numbers. So what I actually wanted to say was integer numbers, but I wasn't not entirely sure if I had this in mind correctly. So it can be measured. And so therefore, a tip like this can also be measured in terms of its effectiveness, but only to a certain extent because there are so many other variables. What if I just eat a little bit less or more, or I eat more protein, or the average of my protein is more stirred towards whey protein compared to other kinds of protein, and so on and so forth. So, the advisor, I often found myself, actually also as I was younger, maybe now still, as someone who wants to give advice. This seems to be, and also partially the reason why I make videos. But I at least direct these videos to my future self in order to, and I also try to keep them in a as close to neutral style as possible in order to avoid this tendency of mine to just extrapolate based on my tiny experience to whatever other people are experiencing, or also I in the future. Just because I am experiencing this now and I think this might be something going after, might not result in this actually being something, a correlation, but it might be. So I'm searching for links, and if there seems to be a link, my brain also might tell me there seems to be a link, because otherwise I might not even explore this, and so there might be different things connected to this. So the main problem, I think, with advice is that that on the spectrum of, okay, it is very common and it also is very specific, basically all advice happens, one could say. So if it is very common, something like do, or do the thing, or if one wants to extend it even more, one already goes into the realm of the more specific. One could also write a 100-page book about some specific thing somebody should do. Now, on this spectrum, it goes basically from something that is very common, this also has very little informational value, to something that is very specific, but the more specific it is, the more accurate the model of the predictor or the advisor of the future reality needs to be in order to still be accurate. Therefore, the more false it also will be. There is then another problem connected to this, which is that the advisor needs to have lots of data, basically in order to have a better model, and therefore to have a resulting better advice for the person who asks or seeks the advice, or maybe the person isn't even seeking the advice but nonetheless gets it. So the problem is that basically the model of reality of the future needs to be very accurate in order for the advice also to ideally be as accurate as possible in order for that advice to be effective. Now this is one side of the problem, but the other side of the problem is in a bidirectional, not bidirectional, it is also bidirectional sometimes, but in a not unilateral, it's what I wanted to say, but I can't think of the word, which is then for two people. Luckily, my subconscious delivered it's bilateral. So if there is a bilateral relationship happening in between two entities, let's say in this case two humans, then there is only the advisor only carries the cost to a certain extent. And if the advisor has some kind of very close ties, let's say the advisor is family, then there might be some close ties because the people meet again, even if they don't meet again for the specific topic the advice was for. But let's say it's a business relationship and then the advisor moves to a different city and he's just gone. Then the cost, basically the cost of, or the opportunity cost of also following everything else or just doing what the advice-seeking person already would continue to do otherwise, maybe not biceps curls, is basically carried by the person who does the thing, by the person who executes, but often not by the person who then does not have that much skin in the game, which would be the advisor.